Alpha
Omega. Spellwork Mastery.
I have a piece of news for you. You're not going to believe this. It's quite shocking, really. You know that you've seen our videos. You know that we provide once a week free magic teaching videos to the public. And we use some of your questions as part of what we do. Also from the Golden Dawn class, we also use some of the footage from there in order to produce these weekly videos. Well, we restream these videos on a bunch of different platforms. Altogether, we've 14 channels right now, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So we restream every hour and on the half hour. So it's really easy to find our work. And the thing that really sort of surprises me is the increasing censorship at Facebook.
Oh, yeah. It's really starting to get oppressive.
It's really, and it's really quite irrational, like an irrational child. I guess they have finally turned on the AI and it's
Right.
trying to learn now. But check this out. You're not going to run into this if you are just posting on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
or who knows what else. But the only place we have ran into it is in live stream titles. Could be other video titles too. Don't know. If you upload it, I'm not sure if you're going to run into the same thing. But for sure with live stream, if you stream to Facebook and you include the word spells or spell in the title, for sure they will censor it. The stream in groups will be censored,
Yes.
will be disconnected, quarantined. I don't know why. They seem to have something that they don't like about spells at Facebook. I don't know why. You can use it as an advertising search term, but you can't use it in a live stream title.
Very strange.
Hey, you think that's weird? How about tarot?
Right.
You can't include tarot either. If you put the word tarot into the title of a live stream, they're going to quarantine it from groups, only from groups. I don't know. They don't want groups to know anything about tarot or spells. It's really strange because ours are magical groups too. And it's
Right.
only in our groups that we're broadcasting.
And we encourage you to test this. If you have a way of testing it, try.
You'll see for yourself. It's really weird. I mean, but all right. We've all heard about the Facebook censorship.
Yes.
And also other places, YouTube too. YouTube has got its own particularities, but we've all heard about the big media censorship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's one thing when they're censoring political opinions.
Right.
But when they start coming after religion and spirituality next, what do you think about that? I know I don't like it. And I know it's only live streams, and so far it's only tarot and spells, but there are a whole lot of people that are into tarot, and there are certain religious faiths that are more into tarot than others. This is looking a lot like religious discrimination now, in addition to political discrimination.
And witches really, really take offense to this because spellcasting and divination are two of what we consider to be our goddess-given rights to celestial and divine knowledge. You know, witches are different from others in that we believe that the things that we as humanity learn as part of our culture and as part of what we hand down and teach our children, we believe that that comes to us from the mind of the goddess, and that each person has the capacity to get in touch with that. And we do that through things like spells and through divination with tarot cards. And so the fact that these two words in particular are being harangued by Facebook makes my blood run cold.
I can imagine.
Because we've seen this sort of thing before, and it does not ever end well.
You know, and as a Christian bishop, I don't like it either. I mean, okay, sure, today they're coming after the Wiccans. Are we next as Christians? I don't know what's going to happen. It's not good. I mean, come on. Why are they censoring tarot and spells? It makes no sense at all.
No. not any logical sense unless you apply the filter of.
They're just applying censorship and trying to get us ready to accept it. It's ridiculous. We still live in America. This is the land of the free.
Yes.
So far, we have freedom of speech and freedom of religion.
And what you must remember is that the rights that you do not exercise will be the first ones taken from you. So if you've never been a person who speaks out against religious persecution before, now is a great time to be inspired by what's happening and make the decision to stand against it.
Yeah, this is the time. I mean, we can't accept this. They're getting us used to incremental, more and more creeping totalitarianism.
It's boiling the frog.
And that's why, we're bringing this to your attention right away. The minute that it starts, it was one thing when they were censoring political opinions. But when they start censoring words having to do with one religious affiliation rather than another, and particularly also as a Christian magician, I'm also very concerned about this because it's targeting the magical community specifically.
Yes, and even those Christians who cast spells and who use tarot, and I assure you there are a great number of Christians who do these things and are still keeping within the confines of what they consider to be upright Christianity.
Right. I mean, today they're coming after spells. What is it tomorrow? Prayer? If they target spells today, hey, they target prayer in China. Don't kid yourselves, guys. Just because we're not experiencing religious persecution here yet in the United States does not mean that we won't. I mean, big tech is leading the way in censoring religion in China. In China today, if you practice Falun Gong, the old Taoist, a modern version of old Taoist practice, you can be arrested, incarcerated, put into a re-education camp, and even have your organs sold if you're not lucky, if you're unlucky.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not like religious persecution doesn't exist. So here in the United States, Leslie and I are very, very sensitive to these things. So we're sounding the alarm early. It's bad enough that they've been censoring political points of view on big tech, but now they're starting with religion as well.
And that's too far.
Yeah, it's one step too far.
No American should put up with that.
We shouldn't put up with it. We shouldn't have to put up with it. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there who think, well, they're private companies. They can do whatever they want. Well, that's not exactly true. Can the telephone company decide, okay, we don't like who you talk to, so you can't have a cell phone? That's because they're public utilities. Then there's another question. There was Marsh versus Alabama was the court case where the Supreme Court decided that freedom of speech is allowed in the public square, even when that's a privately owned public square. All right. Marsh versus Alabama was a case decided by the United States Supreme Court in which it was ruled that a state trespassing statute could not be used to prevent the distribution of religious materials on a town's sidewalk, even though the sidewalk was part of a privately owned company town. The court based its rulings on the provisions of the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment. You see, this was a company town in Alabama. They used to have these company towns. Leslie can tell you all about that.
I intend to say a few things about company towns.
Go ahead.
Okay. Being from West Virginia, I am very well acquainted with the idea of the company town. In fact, my family did work and live in a company town, and that's where I was born, in a place called Welch, West Virginia.
Right.
The town that I was living in was one of the small, you wouldn't really call it a suburb. It was just, there were little pockets of houses because the valleys are so narrow that there's really genuinely not a lot of places to build houses. And these houses all came prefab on the train. So you have the railroad tracks going through, and then where the railroad tracks are, you have houses, and they would simply lift off these box cars that were trailers and then drop them and hook them in. Sometimes with the bigger houses that the company people owned, because they're workers and then there were the company employees. And they were treated very differently. The company provided everyone with housing if you worked at the mine,
Hmm.
And if you were just a coal miner, then you got one of the single wide trailers. But if you worked for the company as part of the office or part of the managerial staff, white collar, then you got a double wide set on top of a concrete basement. It was really quite luxurious for the time and for what was happening. But it was all owned by the town. You had a telephone, we had schools, and the grocery store was very much like Walmart is today, except it had a second story, and up in the top was where all the offices were, where they kept track of what everyone owed to the company store, because invariably you would run out of diapers or peaches or milk or bacon or whatever,
Right.
a new pair of socks. At one point, you could even purchase dynamite at the company store,
Oh, wow.
which the men needed as part of their work, because in the beginning of coal mining in West Virginia, the men were required to supply their own mule and
I get they were
pick.
they were considered independent contractors.
Yes,
Right.
they were.
Oh. I
And
worked as an independent contractor tour director for 35 years, so I know exactly how little rights they have.
yes, and instead of getting paid in the currency of the United States of America,
Right.
they were all paid in scrip money, SCRIPT, and it was the coinage issued by the
By the
individual
company.
and whatever money you made at the Coretta coal mine could be spent at the Cucumber Company store,
Right.
because they took that scrip money. But you probably wouldn't be able to use the scrip from another mine like MiG's 31, because
Right.
that's
So
from
you
a
could
different.
only, the money they paid you in money, you could only use in their own store, in other words.
Yes, at of
Wow.
course greatly inflated prices,
Wow.
requiring people to go into debt. And
And then comes all the stories of the people that were in debt to the company store,
yes,
What was that song, 16 tons, and what do
what
you
you
get?
get.
Another day
Right.
older and deeper in debt.
It was actually quite accurate. And when the miners finally rose up
Hmm.
and attempted to unionize
Hmm.
for better working conditions, how about some real money that we can spend places
Right.
instead of this
Exactly.
crazy script money thing?
Exactly.
The fighting actually became so severe that the federal government was called in. National Guard troops went in.
Hmm.
There, it was, it was quite the war. It was.
Yeah, that was quite
It's called the Coal Wars, and I'm talking in particular about the Battle of Matewan.
this
I
is,
know you've never
look
heard
it
of
up,
these
look
things
it up.
before.
There's some very interesting information there. You'll see where we came from as a nation in terms of workers' rights and things like that,
Right. A lot of this started in West Virginia because of the conditions in the coal mines, and the unbearable burden of scrip as a form of currency.
Right.
Now, my family was directly involved in this because my grandmother was a bookkeeper for a company store in War, West Virginia,
Hmm.
and she was the bookkeeper who made the transition from scrip to actual federal dollars.
Right.
And she found the job so incredibly stressful that at the end of it, she retired and she was
Wow.
completely done. She said she could not bear to look at how deeply indebted every single
Oh,
citizen
wow.
of War was, and it broke her heart, and she couldn't work anymore, and she left.
My goodness. So they were actually, this is a form of indentured servitude. Indentured servitude,
Yes.
look it up, guys. This is a form of slavery. It's a form of slavery wherein you indenture yourself for a certain number of years and then you get your rights back at the end. Now,
Right.
this is being foisted. Look at credit cards today. Americans, whether you realize it or not, many of us are indentured servants to the bank.
Yes.
And students, my goodness, the poor students, they come out of university with so much student loan debt. They are indentured servants for the rest of their lives. Many.
Yes. Yes, they are. And how do you purchase your first house when you come out of college with the amount of debt that a first house is equivalent to?
Right. It's incredible.
Yes, it really is.
So here you see, folks, I'm not making this up. Marsh versus Alabama is a decision that was already made by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And they held that even though it was a privately owned public square, the First Amendment still applied. That's our situation on big tech. Even though they're privately owned companies, they are, by their own admission, they provide a digital public square. And even though that digital public square is privately owned, that does not mean this is a constitution-free zone. This is nonsense. This needs to be cleared up in the courts. We need to get our rights back. We Americans have freedom of speech. The internet is not a constitution-free zone. We have freedom of religion. The internet is not a religion-free zone. And when people like Facebook start censoring words like tarot and spells in Livestream, they are dangerously close to the edge.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's time to stand up. Write to your congressman. Ask them what's being done to protect your First Amendment rights on the internet. What's being done to update the Bill of Rights for the digital age. What we need is, perhaps an updated digital Bill of Rights for the 21st century.
Yes.
So that the Bill of Rights are fully exercised on the internet again. But we really do need to do something about this, because the way this is going, it's not going to end well. Have you ever wanted to gain real magical abilities so you can become the master of your destiny?
Do you wish you could get the ancient secret key for free so you can build the life of your dreams?
If you've wanted more out of life, to become all that you can be, physically, romantically, financially, spiritually, then you need to take action and get this right now.
That's right, and for free, but it won't be available for much longer.
So go right now to thescienceofmiracles.com and get started. Achieve the prosperous life you want for yourself. Gain ultimate life mastery.
Are you familiar with the Rosicrucian, with what's his name? He's popular in the States. He's the president, or the
Emperor.
Imperator.
The president.
Emperor.
Imperator.
From the Golden Dawn. What's his name?
Oh.
David Griffin holds this position as Emperor.
Imperator.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
Have David Griffin.
I saw an email yesterday that he sent out about, there's a magical war going on.
The Mage War.
Demons of the infernal realm. All of them.
There is really a magical war going on.
The Mage War.
There is a guy called David Griffin who is heading all these magicians.
David Griffin is S.L. McGregor Mather's present successor.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
I'm Golden Dawn Imperator David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
Now David Griffin.
There's a magical war going on.
So there is really a magical war going on.
Spellwork Mastery.
Alpha
Omega.